What is up, guys? Today we're going to talk about pretend tough guys in prison. Now, before I start, you all know my story. I spent half my life in prison because I was a heroin addict, and along with addiction comes prison. It's just hand in hand. So, I've been in Cat A prisons, I've been open prisons, Walton, Norwich, Everthorpe, Ramby, Doncaster. So I know prison. I've been around, and along the way you'll bump into a few pretenders, pretend tough guys. Now, when I was growing up, I used to think I was a tough guy. I used to think I was about that life. I used to listen to NWA, I used to watch Boys in the Hood, New Jack City, and I used to think I was about that life. But then when you get to prison and you're around people that are about that life, I got to realise pretty quick that I'm not one of them. And I'm comfortable with that, I'm not very good at fighting. There's a lot of people out there that are, but I'm just not one of them. I mean, there's people like Danny Christie, Decker Heggie, Brett May. I know Brett gets a lot of stick online, but he is about that life. I've met him in prison, I know what he's like. But, that's just one thing that they are better than me at, is fighting. There's a million things I'm better than them at. I could probably beat all of them at chess. I could outspell all of them, I'm a fucking OG at playing Halo 3. I beat all of them. So that's just one thing that they're better than me at. And in prison, you find there's plenty of people who like to pretend that they're about that life. I remember one guy from Conisborough, around here, and he was known as a bully, a taxman. And he had a crossbow, what he used to shoot people with, and he'd take all the stuff off them. And his little gimmick was, he used to, there was a set of sheds what were abandoned, and all addicts from all over used to come around and do drugs in these sheds. And he used to wait until they were in there, and he'd go around and he'd jump out and say, "Police, let me see your hands." And he'd pretend he was an undercover agent, and he'd take all the drugs off them. And by the time they realised what's happened, he's gone. And if they tried chasing him, he'd just shoot him with crossbow. And I remember when we got into the cells one day, I'd been done for shoplifting or whatever, and he was in there. And in his cell, there was a screw sat at the door, a police officer sat at the door with the door open, talking to him. And he was laying on the floor crying, trying to grass, saying, "Oh, I'll take you to their house, I'll show you where they live, just let me go." And I remember thinking, this is the tough guy, this is the tax man that's been shooting everyone, everyone's scared of. And he's on the floor crying. I remember there was a lad from Donny who was going around taxing everyone. He was supposed to be an ex-bouncer. His name was Jamie, I'll not say his second name. And everyone was terrified of him. He was taxing everyone around Donny. And then we got in the cell, I got padded up with him, and he was crying, because we were both detoxing from heroin. Now, when I'm detoxing, I'll just lay on the bed and die. I don't bother no one. I'm just like, leave me alone, come back in a couple of weeks. But he was like crying and saying, "Oh, don't leave me. Oh, don't leave me, Paddy." I'm thinking, fucking hell, this is the tough guy. And, they're just pretenders. And usually when there's somebody who's like running their mouth, telling everyone how tough they are, how many noses they've bit off, and all this crap, usually they're the ones that get laid out in the showers. Someone like Danny G, the Ragnarok fucking Viking warrior, he's always telling everyone how tough he is. Now, I'm not saying he's not capable of beating someone up, but people like that are constantly trying to reassure people how tough they are, they usually get beat up. They're usually not really about that life. But anyway, that's just a few people who I've met along the way who, are trying to be a pretenders. And I would tell you, if you're going to prison, and if you're like me, you're just a normal, decent kid who, don't want no trouble, don't try and be a tough guy, because it will come back on you. I remember one of my first times when I went in the showers with all the Donny lads to beat this kid up for being a grass. And he wasn't even a grass, and then I got out, got back on drugs. I was all skinny and messed up. And when I came back to prison, he was still in there and he was buff. He'd been working out. And I was vulnerable. I was knackered from drugs. And he came in my cell and he says, "Remember me when you all beat me up in showers?" You know, that could have ended badly. And he wasn't even a grass anyway. Him and his mates could have jumped me right then, right there, but they didn't. He says, look, I understand we're in prison, things happen, you know, just let's leave it at that, but I'm not a grass. Just make sure you tell all your mates I'm not a grass. And I was like, yeah, safe, mate. But that could have ended badly, you know, because I was trying to be about that life when I'm not really. So my advice is stay away from prison. It's boring, depressing, it's violent. It's like schoolyard mentality with deadly consequences. But in the real world, we make mistakes. So if you do end up in prison and you're not about that life, don't try to be. Anyway, if you like this video, press the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Fromage frais.